Her husband left her for a wealthy girlfriend, not knowing she is richer than her. Please stay with me as I tell my story, and please do not forget to support by subscribing, liking our videos, and sharing with your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. When my husband left me for his dream girl, he told me I'd never understand the lifestyle he wanted. He was right. I don't understand it. I own it. I'm not the kind of woman who shows off wealth. I drive a 5-year-old car, shop at quiet stores, and wear nice clothes that never try to get attention. I like peace. I like simplicity. What Tom never knew, or maybe never cared to ask, is that I'm worth more than he'll ever earn in 10 lifetimes. I got a fortune from my grandfather, who built a quiet tech business before most people even had email. I grew up with money, but I never wore it like a shield. I just wanted love without a price tag. Tom used to be enough. He had big goals, confidence, and a way of making me laugh when I was too serious. But over time, he grew distant. He started comparing our life to others. He'd look through social media and sigh at pictures of couples in Italy or on boats. He said I lacked drive. What he meant was, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. He called our life boring. I called it peaceful. Then he met her, Vanessa, a woman with long eyelashes, sharp high heels, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She worked in fashion, or at least that's what she told everyone. She always dressed like she was walking a red carpet. She had the kind of presence that made people look twice. Tom was hooked. He told me one night, just like that, no warning, said he found someone who matches his energy, that we had grown apart, that he needed more. Then he packed a suitcase and left. Not a tear, not a second thought. He didn't even take the time to argue. Just gone. I sat there in silence, heart pounding, but face calm. It wasn't just about losing him. It was the insult of it all. The idea that he left because he thought I couldn't offer what Vanessa could. He thought I was small. He thought I was beneath him. The next morning, I made my tea like I always did. I fed the cat. I opened my laptop, checked my investment portfolio, approved a funding proposal, and transferred money to a charity under my foundation's name. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just let the silence settle and smiled. He wanted luxury. He just never realized he was already living inside it. We met during our second year of college. He was loud, charming, and always had something funny to say. I was quieter, more focused. But there was something about his energy that pulled me in. He'd bring me coffee before early classes, and we'd sit on the library steps talking about everything and nothing. When he asked me out, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We got married a year after graduation. I was 24 and he was just starting law school. I had already begun working for one of my family's businesses, though I didn't use the name. I kept things low-key. Most people thought I had landed a decent entry-level job, and I let them, including Tom. He wanted to be the man who took care of things, so I never told him how deep my trust fund went. I paid for our rent, covered our bills, even bought his books, and helped with tuition, quietly through accounts he didn't ask questions about. He assumed my job paid well, and I let him think that. I never wanted money to become a reason for him to stay. I wanted him to stay because he loved me. In those early years, we were happy. We made pasta together in our small apartment, laughed through long nights of studying, and promised each other the world. He said when he made partner, we'd travel, that we'd buy a house by the coast, and never worry again. I believed him, but something shifted once he passed the bar. He got his first real job, and with it came the suits, the new circles, the Instagram posts about leveling up. He started following influencers who showed off private jets and champagne brunches. I noticed how he lingered on certain photos, how he'd mention people who were really doing well. It was like our life, quiet, comfortable, stable, wasn't enough anymore. He started pointing out luxury watches, flashy cars, talked about upgrading, living larger, becoming someone. I'd nod, smile, but deep down I knew he was drifting away from the boy who once called me his world, toward an idea of success built on appearances. Still, I never corrected him, never told him that I could have bought that car 10 times over, that I already owned property in 2 countries, that I was quietly supporting charities while he was busy trying to look rich. I just wanted a partner who chose me for me, someone who didn't need to be impressed. Instead, I got a man who forgot what we built together the moment glitter caught his eye. He didn't even have the decency to say it to my face. One Tuesday morning, I woke up to a text. I think it's best we go our separate ways. I'm sorry, but I need more. This isn't working anymore. That was it. No conversation, no warning, just a few cold sentences after 10 years together. When I walked into the kitchen, his wedding ring was sitting in the sink next to last night's coffee cup. He hadn't even bothered to rinse it. His closet was half empty. The leather chair he loved was gone, along with the TV and our espresso machine. He even took our dog Theo, without asking. No note, no goodbye, just gone. I stood there staring at that ring for a long time. It looked so small out of context, just a piece of metal, no longer part of something sacred. He had made a clean break, and it felt like he'd scrubbed me out of his life like I was a stain. It didn't end there. Within days, the rumors started. Mutual friends began acting weird, replying slowly, canceling. Eventually, one of them slipped and told me what he'd been saying. He said you were holding him back, she whispered on the phone, that you were emotionally distant and broke. I wanted to laugh, but the sting hit first. He was painting me as some fragile, cold woman who couldn't keep up. He didn't just leave me, he rewrote the story so he could be the victim. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't defend myself. I let him play his little game. Let him be the misunderstood hero who had to move on for his own growth. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was because I knew the truth would hit harder when it came from the world, not me. Still, it hurt. The isolation crept in fast. People pulled away, unsure who to believe. I was no longer someone's wife. No longer part of a couple people admired. I was just the woman he walked away from. And, according to him, I was the problem. I started questioning myself. Maybe I'd been too quiet, too reserved. Maybe I didn't dress bold enough, or post enough happy couple pictures. Maybe for a moment I believed his version of me. But in the silence that followed, something else grew. Clarity, because no matter what story he told, deep down, I knew who I was. And soon enough, so would everyone else. The money was never the point. It never had to be. My family has owned real estate for decades, apartment buildings, commercial spaces, and vacation rentals tucked away in quiet corners of the country. We also hold a few patents from my grandfather's days as an inventor. One of them is still used in most smart home systems today. Quiet streams of income have always flowed steadily into our accounts, but we never flaunted it. That's how I was raised. You don't need to show wealth to feel it. I have access to more than $30 million. That's just what's in personal accounts. I also hold controlling shares in a boutique logistics company and 2 small tech firms. I sit on the board of a foundation that funds scholarships for women in STEM. Most people don't know any of that, including Tom. Back when we met, I wanted someone who saw me, not dollar signs. So, I let him believe I had a regular job, decent, but nothing special. I paid for things through a joint account and made sure my lifestyle never seemed flashy. I didn't want the money to get in the way of something real. But now, I see it differently. I let him think he was the one holding things together, that he was the backbone, the provider, the dreamer, when really, I was the quiet engine running beneath the surface, keeping us afloat without ever asking for credit. Looking back, I wish I had told him not to rub it in, but so he couldn't twist the truth later. He left thinking he upgraded, thinking he walked away from someone weak, but I was never the one dependent. Now that he's gone, I don't have to hide. I've been meeting with new advisors, updating legal documents, shifting my assets. There's a kind of freedom in reclaiming what I had once set aside to fit into someone else's idea of normal. I've even started stepping back into the world I once kept hidden, attending events, reviewing business plans, reconnecting with people who knew my worth before I started dimming it. This time, I'm not keeping it quiet, not because I need to prove anything, but because I've learned something important. The right people never feel threatened by your shine. He wanted someone who lived big. Well, I live bigger than he ever imagined. I just didn't need to prove it until now. And when the world starts whispering my name again, he'll be the last to find out. Or maybe he'll just Google it. I didn't plan the makeover for revenge. I did it for me. After years of blending in, I wanted to see what it felt like to stand out on my own terms. I didn't chase trends. I chose quality tailored dresses, classic silhouettes, heels that clicked with purpose. My hair, once tied back out of habit, now framed my face in soft waves. Subtle makeup, polished jewelry, understated power. I didn't want to look expensive. I wanted to look untouchable, and it worked. The first event I attended was the Spring Hearts Gala, a black tie fundraiser for Children's Hospital. I had donated for years behind the scenes, but this time I showed up not just as a guest, but as a board member. I walked through the doors of the ballroom with my head high, heels silent on the marble. Soft jazz played under the hum of clinking glasses and laughter. I recognized a few faces. They paused when they saw me doing double takes, before rushing over with surprised smiles. It was the first time in years I felt seen, not as Tom's wife, not as the quiet girl in the corner, just me. Then I spotted them. Tom, in a rented tux, trying too hard to look like he belonged. Vanessa draped in a designer gown she probably couldn't pronounce. Her laugh was loud, rehearsed. Her hand rested on his arm like she was claiming something. Her eyes landed on me. I watched the recognition flicker, confused at first. Then her lips curled into something smug. "Well, look who decided to crawl out of her shell," she said as I passed, voice sweet like poison. "Didn't expect to see you here. Who invited you?" I smiled. "Not too big, just enough. I sit on the board," I said simply and kept walking. Her face froze for half a second. Tom's grip on his drink tightened. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I spent the evening speaking with donors, exchanging cards, smiling for photos with the chairwoman. Every now and then, I felt their eyes on me from across the room. That night wasn't about proving anything. It was about stepping back into my skin. I hadn't lost myself. I had just been quiet too long. And as I stood beneath the chandeliers, glass of champagne in hand, I realized something. They didn't recognize me at first because they never really saw me, but now they wouldn't be able to forget. They moved into one of the most talked about condos downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, valet parking, a rooftop pool. Vanessa posted every angle of the place on her stories, tagging it like a badge of success. "New beginnings," she wrote, standing on a balcony that overlooked the city. She had no idea the building belonged to me. Well, not to me exactly. It was under an LLC, one of many I've quietly managed for years. I hadn't set foot in that building since before the renovation, but the moment I saw their names pop up on the tenant list, I smiled. What a coincidence. A few weeks later, a complaint came in about loud music and an unauthorized party after hours. It was their unit. I didn't send management. I decided to check in myself. I arrived at sunset dressed in a black fitted suit, heels clicking across the marble lobby. The doorman greeted me with a familiar nod, and the concierge quickly offered to escort me up, but I declined. I knew my way around. When the door opened, Vanessa looked confused. Her eyes scanned me head to toe, trying to place the face with the authority. "Can I help you?" she asked, tone sharp but cautious. "I'm here about a tenant disturbance," I said coolly. "Unit 21B. Tom appeared behind her, shirt wrinkled, holding a drink. His face dropped the moment he saw me. "You live here now?" he asked, almost a sneer. "No," I said, glancing around, "but I do own the place." He blinked. Vanessa laughed awkwardly, clearly not following. I didn't explain. Instead, I handed them a notice about revised noise policies. "We've updated quiet hours and guest limits," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I recommend reviewing the new agreement. Repeated violations may lead to early lease termination." I didn't wait for questions. I turned and left. Over the next few weeks, more changes followed. Parking spots were reassigned. Guest access codes expired quicker. The rooftop pool required new reservations, always booked solid by people I happened to know. None of it was dramatic, just enough to remind them they weren't in charge. They probably still don't know the full truth. To them, it's just bad luck. But to me, it's quiet satisfaction because power isn't about shouting or showing off. It's about control, having it, using it wisely, and knowing you can shift someone's entire comfort with the stroke of a pen. And I haven't even started. Vanessa looked rich. That was her talent. She knew how to dress, how to pose, how to speak like someone who came from money. She leased luxury cars, wore designer outfits bought on credit, and booked hotel suites just long enough to take the perfect photo. Her social media sparkled with travel, champagne, and polished captions. But it was all smoke. Behind the curtain, things were falling apart. The handbag she flaunted in every post, rented, the investment properties she bragged about, under foreclosure, her so-called fashion line, a drop-shipping setup that hadn't turned a profit in months. She owed money on nearly every card she had, and was taking out personal loans just to stay afloat. When Tom left me for her, he thought he was stepping up. He saw her lifestyle and believed it was real. But now he was living inside that illusion, and it was beginning to crack. Friends started noticing. He stopped showing up at networking events. Vanessa was still posting, but now the backgrounds were more cropped, less grand. The dinners looked dimmer. A few followers asked questions in the comments. Where had the trips gone? Why hadn't she released her spring collection yet? The truth was, she was broke. Not just broke, trapped in a cycle of image over substance. Tom had no idea what he was walking into when he followed her sparkle. He thought he'd found someone who matched his new ambition. Instead, he married into a mess, and as bills piled up, so did the tension. They began arguing loud enough for neighbors to hear. Tom blamed her for not being honest. She called him useless, said she needed someone who could really provide. He was shocked. He thought he was the one being taken care of. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that they fought in public one night right outside a restaurant. She shouted that he was nothing without her, and he yelled back that she was drowning in fake wealth. A few people filmed it. It didn't go viral, but the embarrassment stuck. It was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Rent payments delayed, cars repossessed, followers dropping. She had spent so long pretending to be rich that she didn't know how to live any other way. And Tom, who once looked down on me for being simple, now found himself beside a woman whose entire life was built on a lie. Funny how fast things changed. The feature ran in a national magazine tucked between glossy spreads of business leaders and humanitarians. The quiet millionaire philanthropist. It read beneath my photo. The article spoke about my work with underfunded schools, women-led startups, and clean water initiatives. My name was there in black and white. No more LLCs hiding behind initials. Tom saw it. Of course he did. He reached out 2 days later. The message was short, polite, and full of that careful tone people use when they want something without admitting it. Saw your article. You look incredible. Didn't realize you were doing all that. Would love to catch up. Just for closure. Closure. I stared at the message for a long time before replying, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to be sure I wasn't answering from anger. I felt nothing sharp anymore, just clarity. Sure, I replied. Let's meet. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of the city, not flashy, but tasteful, the kind of place I used to suggest when we were still together, and he thought was too plain. He arrived first. I could tell from the way his shoulders lifted when I walked in. He stood awkwardly, unsure if he should hug me. I offered a brief smile and sat down. You look different, he said, searching my face. I feel different, I answered. He danced around the real reason he'd come, talked about memories, how things had moved so fast, said he'd made mistakes but was in a better place now. I let him talk. He circled closer to the truth with every word, waiting for me to fill in the gaps. I didn't know, he finally said, about the money, about who you really were. No, I said gently. You never asked. There was silence. He looked down at his hands, then back up. I thought you were hiding, that you were holding back, but now I see you were just whole. I didn't know what to do with that. He wanted forgiveness, maybe a second chance, maybe he just wanted me to say something that would make him feel less small. I'm glad you reached out, I said. Truly, it gave me a chance to see how far I've come. He smiled a little, hopeful. But this, I gestured between us, this is the closure. His smile faded. I stood, left enough cash to cover the bill, and walked away, heels steady, heart light. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. I had already won. I chose the cafe on purpose. It was the same one where he proposed to me years ago with shaky hands and a nervous smile. Back then, it had felt magical. Today, it felt like a stage, and I was ready for my final act. I arrived exactly on time, dressed in soft cream silk, a simple gold necklace resting against my collarbone, polished, confident, effortless. I didn't need flash. I was the statement. Tom was already seated, fiddling with his glass of water. He stood when he saw me, eyes widening just slightly. He didn't recognize me at first. Not really, not like this. You look, he began. I know, I said, sitting down. He smiled nervously and started talking. Apologies, scattered reflections, a handful of excuses disguised as regrets. He said he wasn't thinking clearly, that he never meant to hurt me, and he missed what we had. Then came the careful wording, the subtle suggestion of reconnecting. I didn't realize how much you meant to me until after, he said, and I didn't know who you really were. I stirred my coffee.com and steady. You didn't know, I repeated softly, because you never cared enough to look. He blinked, unsure. I leaned in slightly. I wasn't hiding who I was just quiet about it. I wanted to be loved for something deeper than money. So, I let you believe I needed you. I paused, then smiled. You thought Vanessa offered more sparkle, more ambition. But what she had was debt and illusion. You fell for a highlight reel. Meanwhile, I was funding entire startups before breakfast. He looked stunned, jaw slightly slack. I have more than you ever imagined, I continued. voice still calm. Real estate, businesses, investments, quiet success built on purpose, not pretense. His face flushed. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't think I had to, I said. I believed if someone really saw me, they'd see it all. You didn't. I stood, leaving my untouched latte behind. I don't need closure, I said gently. But you clearly do. I placed a crisp bill on the table, covering both our drinks, a small gesture, but one that said everything. As I turned to leave, I glanced around at the little cafe that once held so much meaning. Same place, same man. But I wasn't the same woman. He had proposed to me here once. This time, I said no without needing to say the word. My life moved on smoothly, quietly, beautifully. I began traveling again, not for photos or praise, but for joy. I walked along the Amalfi Coast, visited art galleries in Paris, and sat with village elders in Peru to learn about their traditions. I found purpose in moments, not in proving anything. My work with the foundation grew. We funded programs in underserved schools, built clean water systems, and helped young women launch their own businesses. Every meeting I walked into, I was respected not because I was loud, but because I delivered. I surrounded myself with people who valued real things, kindness, action, honesty. I laughed more, rested more, and finally felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Tom, on the other hand, was unraveling. He'd left for the promise of a brighter life, but all he found was chaos. Vanessa's debts caught up with her. Her fashion line quietly shut down. Creditors started calling, and when the money dried up, so did her affection. They fought often, loudly, publicly. The building staff began whispering. Then came the eviction notice. When they were finally forced to leave the condo, management offered no explanation to the other residents, just a polite note. The previous leaseholders have undergone financial restructuring. The unit is now available. I happened to be in the building that day reviewing updates on another floor. From the penthouse, the view was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the skyline, the city glowing in early evening light. I stood near the balcony, a glass of wine in hand, watching two familiar figures step into a moving van below. There was no joy in seeing them fall. No gloating, just a quiet acknowledgement. He had chosen glitter over gold. Now he had nothing. I didn't wave, I didn't text, I didn't post about it. I just sipped my wine, turned away from the window, and walked back into the warmth of a life I built with intention. Revenge never had to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is thrive while saying nothing at all.